It was a Friday night, Erev Shabbat, when Russian soldiers during World War I entered the Romanian town of Tomshavar. Like every other Friday night, Rabbi Chaim Zilber and his family sat down to their Shabbat table. The rabbi stood to recite Kiddush, and as he began, there was a loud banging on the door. Russian soldiers were spreading through the town and demanding to be housed in people's homes. Refusal would lead to violence and eviction. As the banging increased, Rabbi Zilber remained completely oblivious to the chaos surrounding him. He continued to recite the words of the Shabbat Kiddush as if nothing else was happening beyond the sacred words that were emanating from his lips. Slowly, his wife Esther opened the front door, and a handful of gruff Russian soldiers barged into their home. They began barking orders at the rabbi's family, but he remained unmoved and uninterrupted. The soldiers were taken aback by his peaceful state, and they too became silent. When their captain witnessed the scene in front of them, he motioned the rest of his soldiers to leave and wait outside. When Rabbi Zilber completed his prayer, he finally noticed the soldier, and he offered him some wine. At that point, the captain burst into tears. After several moments, he calmed himself and said to the rabbi, "When I was 3 years old, soldiers came and took my parents away. They were placed in one car, and I was placed in the other. I never saw them again. The last thing I remember of them was my father calling out, 'Remember, you are a Jew. Don't ever forget that.' To this day, I haven't seen anyone make Kiddush until this night." Wiping tears from his eyes, the captain walked outside, feeling at peace with himself. He had found his way back home, and he would return every Friday night to celebrate Shabbat with the Zilber family. For the Russian captain, his Jewish identity was robbed from him by the Tsarist Empire. But the spark of his Jewish soul that laid hibernating deep inside his spirit was never extinguished. It burned there, in the deep recesses of his consciousness, waiting for that one moment when it would be reignited. The Russian army had robbed him of his weekly Shabbat, but just now he had discovered its importance again. Every week deserved an oasis of solitude and spirit at the end, and without it, one week ran into the other, robbing him of any opportunity to reflect, appreciate, and discern the messages and meaning of the passing of time. Ever since Moses came down from Mount Sinai, our people have been instructed to make Shabbat a holy part of their lives. While I believe that most of us would argue that we adhere enthusiastically to the Ten Commandments, somehow the fourth commandment, honor the Sabbath and keep it holy, has gotten away from us. Somewhere along the way, we lost the will to separate our weeks, to give one week closure and the next an introduction. We let one week bleed into the other, with no discernment, no rest from the grind of our routines. And when this happens, we deprive ourselves of the opportunity to take stock of our days. And in today's fast-paced social media, breaking news blitz of information and entertainment, it's not at all difficult for the individual to have their values, good intentions, and potential thrown off track. Rabbi Alexander Schindler, Zichrono Livracha, who led our Reform movement so profoundly for 3 decades, used to say that every rabbi has one sermon that they give over and over throughout their career. I used to talk about this a lot with his daughter, Rabbi Judy Schindler, who was my senior rabbi when I was an assistant rabbi in Charlotte, North Carolina. If I had to define what my sermon was throughout my career until now, I would say that my main thesis was this: we need to deepen the connection between Reform Jews and mitzvah observance. For over 2 decades now, I've been working and urging and hoping and praying that you would pray more, study Torah more, consider what you eat more, observe holidays more, etc. However, in the last year or so, I've come to recognize something that you probably already knew. What is it? It is that, very simply, the game has changed. The rules have changed. But we're all still playing it. When I speak to Orthodox rabbis, they tell me that they can get their congregants to participate in almost any activity or event that requires the fulfillment of a mitzvah. They will come when they feel obligated, but other than that, it's hard to get their involvement. On the contrary, Reform Jews today rarely feel obligated. Let me repeat that. We rarely feel obligated to observe mitzvot. That doesn't mean we don't love being Jewish. We very much do. And we will come and we will participate when and only when we feel that our participation will be uplifting, spiritual, or rewarding. For 22 years now, I've been waiting on Friday nights for the masses to show up for Shabbat worship simply because it was Shabbat. Only now, after all that time, it took me a long time, have I come to realize that you are likely not coming because you are obligated, but that you might come if you knew you would be uplifted in a way that speaks to you. In June 2004, a small group of Israelis were seeking ways to maintain spiritual and communal life in Tel Aviv. In the hustle and bustle of Tel Aviv's primarily secular culture, they had an idea. On June 25th, 2004, they put together a Friday night Kabbalat Shabbat musical service on the boardwalk adjacent to the trendy port area. The service embraced Jewish tradition through the lens of Israeli culture. They created, in their words, a space for large, creative, vibrant, and inclusive community. And they did it right where the beach meets the boardwalk. Soon their Friday night service grew to include poetry and music in a style that merged the contemporary with the traditional. The goal was to create, within the broader Tel Aviv community, an opportunity for non-Orthodox Jews to celebrate Shabbat and holidays together. These are Jews who do not generally feel commanded to observe mitzvot, but they recognized that the opposite of Orthodox was not secular, which is a myth that has been promulgated in Israel for far too long. The opposite of Orthodox for a Jew is someone who does not feel commanded to observe mitzvot fundamentally, yet nevertheless has a Jewish soul that yearns for fulfillment. The Tel Aviv group that started the Kabbalat Shabbat services on the boardwalk call themselves today the Israeli House of Prayer. They have services every Friday night that attract more than 1,000 participants a week. Over 1,000 different Jews who do not feel commanded to observe Shabbat, but nevertheless find fulfillment in a Shabbat experience that is uplifting and reflective. Their Shabbat looks a great deal different than traditional Jews in Jerusalem. They don't follow the strict guidelines of Jewish law. But for that moment, when they are seated before the shimmering waters of the Mediterranean, as they listen to a traditional liturgy merged with modern sound, there is a pause. There is discernment. There is reflection. There is honor the Sabbath and keep it holy. In the book of Deuteronomy, we read in chapter 6, the first paragraph of the Shema, which we know as the Ve'ahavta. We're taught to love God with all of our hearts and with all of our souls, b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha. But just a few chapters later, in Deuteronomy chapter 10, as Moses is preparing the Israelites to enter the land of Israel, the Hebrew changes from the singular to the plural. B'chol nafshechem u'b'chol levavchem. It's taught by Rav Kook, the first chief rabbi of Israel and the founder of the religious Zionist movement, that to love God with all your heart and with all your soul means to do it within the context of community. This is why the Hebrew changes to the plural just before the Israelites enter the land of Israel. It's not something that can be done alone. It's something that can only be accomplished in the presence of the congregation. Once the Jews become a nation state, the Torah teaches that for a Jewish community to exist and thrive, they had to share their holy moments together. And this is exactly what I've been dreaming about for the last 2 years. When we started construction on the hub, I knew that eventually COVID would recede and we would emerge with a new campus, complete with a fabulous new courtyard. I knew that our schools and youth programs would joyously fill the space, as would all the incredible programming that the hub will offer. But I had a greater dream in mind as well. A dream that would advance the mission of our congregation in ways that we've never before imagined. A dream that would be every bit as revolutionary as Beyond the Curve, but this time won't cost you anything. I've been waiting for over 2 years to share this dream with you, and finally the moment is here. My dream is a challenge. A challenge to all 1,700 families that make Beth Am their spiritual home. A challenge that asks each one of us to commit to making Shabbat a part of our lives on a routine basis. Now, I know that Shabbat comes around every week. That can be annoying. But what I'm asking of you today is something smaller. Something that if we all commit to, will revolutionize our spiritual community in ways that nothing else can. What I'm challenging each one of us to do is to commit to coming to temple on Friday night once a month for the next 8 months. 8 times a year. I know that you're all in Colorado, the Berkshires, and North Carolina for 3 months. I'm only asking for 8. The next 8 months, 8 times a year, once a month. That's it. Come to temple Friday night, once a month. And when we do it, the payoff will be exponential. And when you come, the experience will be heightened. Of course, we'll have our services here in the sanctuary, but we're also going to have an alternative camp-style service, either outside or in the hub, weather permitting. It'll be less formal, often youth-led and full of energy. And after all the services are over, my dream is that everyone will empty into the courtyard and picnic together. Some nights we'll have a band playing. Some nights there'll be a movie on our outdoor screen. Some nights there'll be youth events and entertainment for our children. Some nights there'll be a fabulous book reading. We don't have the shimmering waters of the Mediterranean, but we do have a beautiful campus that is one of the new marvels of the American Jewish landscape. Every Shabbat, no matter what the program, we will fill our campus with the sights and sounds of community. We will create weekly a moment in time where you will experience Shabbat, where our community will see each other and be together, where the driving force that unites us is the sacred moment and spark of Shabbat. The alternatives to not coming are attractive. We live in one of the most exciting cities in the world. We have more sports, entertainment, food, wine, beach than almost anyone. And that's hard to compete with. Unless you understand what it is that I am offering. What Shabbat at Beth Am offers is an experience that is not self-indulgent. An experience where you can have fun, but also go home afterwards with an ignited soul. We can offer you an opportunity to sync your mindset and thought process with the rhythm of the Jewish calendar and the camaraderie of community. We can offer you the nostalgic feeling of making Shabbat Kiddush with your parents, grandparents, or the next generations. We can offer you the feeling of knowing that you have contributed your gifts and the gifts of your presence to the rest of the congregation. We can offer you a moment where you can fly the flag of your Jewish pride and stand up for the values that it represents. We can offer you solace and peace amid an unrelenting, never-ending cycle of work, school, news, and the trials of everyday life. I dream of walking out of services on Friday night and heading outside to see families picnicking in our courtyard, kids running around while their parents enjoy the company of friends, a fulfilled, holy congregation appreciating each other in an atmosphere that is disconnected from the business of the world. I dream of knowing that the incredible work that takes place on our campus day in and day out will be capped each week with moments of holiness and togetherness. I dream of each one of you making a little time for Shabbat. I dream of our community adjusting our mindsets and our calendars to the rhythm of the Jewish cycle, taking seriously our holy moments and building our schedules around them. There's a story of the famous 19th century Hasidic Rabbi Yisrael Friedman of Ruzhin, known as the Holy Ruzhiner. When he was a boy, he was studying a particular section of Talmud with his rabbi. They were dealing with Shabbat law. And the question the Talmud asked was, what does one do when traveling in the wilderness and loses track of days so that he doesn't know which day is Shabbat? The rabbis debate whether he stops right away and observes Shabbat right then and there, or does he count 6 days and then observe Shabbat? The young boy asked his teacher, "This makes no sense. How does someone not know what day Shabbat is? How do you not just feel the essence and the holiness of the day?" The teacher thought his pupil was responding disrespectfully. He was getting madder and madder as the young boy continued to question, how could someone not know what day Shabbat is? Eventually, his father arrived and said to the teacher, you must excuse my son. He's very special. He has the ability to sense the uniqueness of Shabbat, and he can sense the power of the day in his soul. I'm dreaming of a day when we come to know the majesty and grandeur of what Shabbat offers, when we commit to making it part of our routine, to prepare ourselves at least once a month to celebrate with our friends. Once a month. 8 times a year with our community. And through that process, enjoy the unlimited benefits that Shabbat offers. For the last 6 years, we have dedicated ourselves to reimagining our campus in ways that would best suit our mission for the future. Together, we completed our capital and construction campaigns, and now we have this incredible campus to enjoy. In my opinion, it has been one of the greatest achievements in the last few years in the entire Jewish world. Our school is operating at full capacity in a setting previously unimaginable. Our YERS and youth programs are experiencing a renaissance, and our temple membership is bursting at the seams. Despite all the success of the last few years, I know in my heart that when you rise to this challenge, when you embrace this community and its holiness once a month, when you accept my challenge, you are going to revolutionize our community in ways that nothing else can. Many communities have built beautiful buildings. Many schools have created peak atmospheres for learning and growing. But I'm not sure that there are many Reformed communities that have created a weekly Shabbat community that is sustained and growing, that is vibrant and electric, that is based not just on Yortzeit and B'nai Mitzvah observance, but is tied to a deep desire to celebrate community within the framework of holiness. I'm asking for 8 Friday nights a year. Then, go to Colorado. Go to the Berkshires. Go to North Carolina. And next year at this time, we'll start again. I'm praying that you will rise to this challenge, that you will embrace it and make it a meaningful aspect of your lives. And I'm dreaming of a Shabbat community right here in our beautiful home, Temple Beth Am. I'm waiting for the moment when we can proclaim together our hallowed words of redemption, Zeh hayom asa Adonai, Zeh hayom asa Adonai, Zeh hayom asa Adonai, Nagila v'nismecha bo. This is the day the Lord has made. This is the day the Lord has made. This is the day the Lord has made. Let us exult and rejoice, celebrate and prosper, and bask together in the light that shines upon our holy congregation. Amen.